Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 24th edition, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, edition of The Way with Anoa. To have you all with me yet again, another week, another day. How y'all doing? I hope you guys have been doing very well so far. We are winding down on the fifth month. We are through 2016. I mean, it is amazing how far we have come in such a short period of time. So, again, welcome and thank you all. I am going to be joined very shortly by my guest for the evening. Um, just wanted to just share a little bit of news and other tidbits with you. About 8:15, I'll be joined by Eloy Delgado, a congressional candidate from New Jersey. Yay! Very excited to see all of these wonderful people who are really stepping up and putting their hat in the ring, so to speak, and ready to fight the good fight. Just for news today, start with a little international news. Peru declared an emergency over mercury contamination in 11 towns, approximately 50,000 people in the Amazon region. It is thought that this has resulted from gold mining and deposits that have been likely been found in air, water, fish, and sediment. There was also India recorded. Okay. So India records highest temperature ever, 0.8 degrees. That was yesterday. And the current heat wave in India has caused 160 deaths. So that's pretty wild. And all of this stuff kind of goes into the ongoing conversation we continue to have about climate change, right? Everyone is aware of, well, mostly everyone is aware and cooperative on the issue of climate change. Everyone sees the need to actually do something about it. And some of these issues do kind of go along with, increased awareness of environmental concerns, as well as a real meaningful plan of global climate change. The Paris Accord is definitely a step in the right direction, but there's a lot more we need to be doing. Just an update on the Fort McMurray fire, the wildfire we discussed previously. It is expected that this will be weeks fighting this fire, if not even longer. Shout out to my girl DQ Hyde, Dr. Q Hyde, for putting this together for me. Based on when she did pull this article, as of 10 a.m., the wildfire was 22,895 hectares in size. Hectares, not acres. Hectares. It's huge. It's a large area. 40 new wildfires started on Monday, and many were abandoned campfires. Also trying to work on reentry plans, and their environmental restoration efforts are underway, as well as repairs. There's a link that we can drop in the chat as well if anyone be interested in Red Cross donations to help. So moving a little bit domestic, U.S. based. Yesterday, of course, Ben talked about the Nero trial, Officer Nero's trial, and which is Officer Nero is one, particularly if you watched last night or if you've been following in the news and on Twitter and stuff. Officer Nero is one of the 6 police involved in the Freddie that led up to the killing, the death of Freddie Gray. And that's all very that I just read a really interesting piece in the Baltimore Examiner right before coming on air. I wasn't really going to get into this and do something separate about all this, but what was interesting was 25-page, which I now have to go online and download it. It's a 25-page explanation. The bench decision it's 25 pages based on what I read in this article, and it just explains point by point, exactly why. It was very thorough, was the analysis from this article. So I'm interested to look at it myself. But the article pointed to the fact that they reached out to attorneys, Black attorneys, white attorneys, a variety of attorneys, who all said that this actually seemed to be a very analysis on the legal issues. And this is really what this is an example of what a little justice should actually look like. So I know for people who want to see to see people really actually receive punishment for when bad things occur. This particular officer, with these particular set of facts, that the charges that were charged were maybe not that this person is completely absolved of wrongdoing. No, the legal, in the legal world, all it simply means is the prosecution did not meet the burden because these particular facts and these particular, the legal requirements just were not met. Very interesting piece from the Baltimore Examiner I saw earlier this evening. Also happening today, there was a question in a Twitter chat about Marley Graham. Marley Graham was 4 years, I believe it's been 4 years, in his house. It was a no-knock raid, I believe. And the hashtag is Fire NYPD. And that's right, just Siri X had a really great list of 8 facts about of Marley Graham. Now, this is an ongoing issue. The cops have never been charged. This is we have such a long list of all these cases. And it's not just, even though the killings are the ones that really evoke our emotion, there are people who have been engaged in other forms of abuse, property damage, etc., and they still have nothing, really in their jacket to document any of this stuff, let alone actually being held accountable. But 8 facts about the NYPD's killing of Marley Graham. Marley, Ramarley, Graham. Number 1, Marley was unarmed. He was not committing a crime. Number 3, he did not run from the NYPD. Number 4, the NYPD did not have a warrant to enter his home. Number 5, the NYPD shot him in front of his grandmother and 6-year-old brother. Number 6, they interrogated his grandmother after she witnessed his murder. Number 7, she was denied access to an attorney during her interrogation. And number 8, his mother was assaulted by NYPD at the precinct after they killed her son. So the other hashtag is, hashtags are Fire NYPD, Prosecute NYPD. You can just follow through to see the story stuff. I mean, this is something else that's been going. This has been going on for years now. Various groups like the Justice League of New York. I'm on their newsletter, so they had a Twitter question and answer. There's a lot of things that are happening. These Twitter question and answers or AMAs on Reddit. Opportunity to delve deeper into the ongoing work people are doing around these different cases, because even though we're discussing the Freddie Gray case and whether or not the right charges have been brought, charges in that case were brought and going. People in New York who are organizing around this case, where Marley Graham, are still trying to even get the police fired, disciplined. I mean, it's been like 4 or 5. I believe it's 4. I think it's 4 years, might be 5 years, but it's been a long time. So, so that was something that I saw yesterday. I saw it yesterday, and then it's on my list of good news stories, and it's definitely something that we should be following up on and staying involved with. Because when we lend our voice, even though it may not be our specific area, that might even be our particular issue. When we lend our voice, we lend our energy, however we can, it helps lift up issues that really actually are relevant and matter and are otherwise. We have all these great so-called leaders who like to pat themselves on the back for all the great work they've done, at XYZ point in time. Struggle that is happening today, and we have to step up and be the leaders that we need in our community. Seriously, it doesn't matter who you support when you go to the ballot box. If you're in Georgia, hopefully today you guys got out to the polls and voted. Today in Georgia we voted. That brings it to another in Georgia. It's very interesting. I don't really know much about this case. There's at least 2 different Democrats suing the Georgia Democrats. Accuse Bernie Sanders people of doing something funny. There's some really interesting inner workings here in Georgia, and I'm sure there are in other state parties, where actually a Hillary supporter who was a delegate, was actually pushed out of her delegate position and she's now suing. And there was another, established long-term member of the Democratic Party who's also suing because of, issues in terms of what appeared to be unfair dealings in his nomination process in a prior cycle. So there's a lot going on. But today, speaking of Democrats, we have I saw a few different posts and stuff. It's pretty cool. So, as many folks are aware, Bernie Sanders a couple days ago, Tim Canova's my guy. I've already been all about Tim, especially since he's running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. But Bernie Sanders came out and basically endorsed, and those won't see the email endorsing him. He did endorse Tim Canova a few days ago, and now today he has endorsed 8 state-level progressives, including Justin Bamberg, who was one of the South Carolina legislators who on the trail for him, which I'm really happy to see. Because there are people who really, y'all don't understand. It's not just, we need to all come together and stuff like that. Like really put it on the line to step out there and support Senator Sanders, really step down their line to canvass for him, to work for him. Like people who are already in the party, who already have positions, they really stepped out there. Right. So hopefully, you know what I'm saying? All of us, if you're in South Carolina, if you're in Illinois, if you're in any of these places where the 8 people, and not just the 8 people, there's a longer list of individuals. I'm getting ready to talk to an up-and-comer in a few minutes, but there's a long list of people out there who most definitely deserve our time, energy, focus, and support. So yes, I know we are all reared up and ready to go for the convention. We got California, New Jersey, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. The code is still happening in DC. DC bringing up the rear, last primary. But we can't forget about the state and local elections, the congressional elections that are going on. That point cannot be driven home hard enough because we need people to be in these positions. We need to elect people who are going to represent us, who are going to put servant back in public servant. That's what we need. And a lot of people are really been out of shape and stuff over Bernie Sanders' appointments to the DNC committee, yesterday Ben talked about or whatever. But there are some really great opportunities he's putting forth for people who otherwise would not ordinarily be a part of the political process at this level. Issues with Dr. Cornel West, but someone of his thinking, particularly with an understanding of the intersection of race and economics, that's crucial. This is probably a good place for an academic like him. Listen, right? The first Muslim representative in Congress. People don't really understand how huge this really is. They're so busy getting upset because Cornel West talked about my best friend, President Obama. So, I really think that we have to start thinking about what is, on the one hand, we have people telling us we have to do what's good for the party. We have to all get together. On the other hand, we really need to be thinking about what is good for the country as a whole and how do we start moving the needle. Not this incrementalism they keep trying to sell us on, that they've been selling us on for 40, 50 years, but really moving the needle and bringing about meaningful, sustainable change, not just to the nation as a whole, but to our states and local communities. This is what we are fighting for. So I understand that Hillary folks, y'all may not be very happy with us with all this talk about, brand new Congress and burning crash, but we're doing this for all of us. You guys aren't excluded. You may not want to be with us right now, but trust us. As long as you come and play nice later on, there will always be a place for a table. So I'm excited because I have a friend to talk to tonight. How are you?
Good. How are you? I'm very happy to be here.
I'm very happy to have you. Please introduce yourself to our group.
Absolutely. My name is Eloy Javier Delgado. I'm a public school teacher from Elizabeth, New Jersey, work in Linden, and I'm running for Congress in the 8th Congressional District here in New Jersey as a strong progressive Democrat.
Awesome. So you go from hurting kids, in school, the herding cats in Congress. Like how what just like let's just start with the how for a little bit. What motivated you to go from teaching to Congress?
Listen, this honestly, I got tired of just yelling at my TV screen about certain issues. I got tired of being frustrated in the classroom, seeing as teachers we don't have a voice in policy. We just have to, we're mules. We got to take out the policy. We got to just, we just got to follow orders and they don't listen to our voices. I'm tired of the poverty that exists in my community in the same neighborhoods that it existed when I was a kid, that it existed when 20 years before I was a kid. Like, we've been dealing with the same issues time and time again. I'm tired that at the local level, we are, you're from Jersey, so you probably know about this. Our
Oh, I'm
local.
not. I lived in Jersey. I'm not gonna play. I lived in Jersey for a year, but I was so excited because I knew where you, but I know where you're at though, because I live. My stepfather's from there. My
Okay.
sister graduated from East Side High in Patterson, so like I know the area. So I was like, oh yeah, this is almost like home. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. You know, local elections here tend to be very nasty. They tend to get very
Mm,
personal. And we're not talking about income inequality. We're not talking about the persistent systemic poverty that exists in our communities and have existed in our urban centers for a very long time. Now, in my district, you are seeing a lot of new people move in, and that's great,
mm,
and I'm not, no disrespect to anyone moving in, like we welcome you absolutely. However, we also need to pay attention that that's also displacing certain people that have been there for generations, and
yes.
we need to have federal policies that uplift all our residents, our current residents, while still accepting newcomers. But we need to not forget the residents that are there that have been there and have been wiped out because of NAFTA, free trade, wiped out because they never had access to the American dream because of racism, poverty, and whether they were black, Latino, or whatever it may be.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
what motivated me, I got so frustrated, and I was paying attention to the presidential thing, but I'm not. When Hillary first announced, it was like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. She'll be the nominee. It is what it is. All right. I mean, whatever. I'll just go. It'll be the same little changes we've been getting, sort of on the left for how many, like you said, 40, 50 years now.
Hmm.
Then this guy named Bernie Sanders appears out of nowhere. Like, I knew of him and I knew what he stood for, sort of, but I never looked into him that much. And then I looked into him. Then I looked
Right.
at the videos from 20 years ago, 30 years ago. He's talking about the poor. He's talking about gay rights before it was even like a thing to do. Like,
Exactly.
his consistency was just really inspired me, and the type of, if I'm elected, if I have the honor of getting the Democratic nomination and going on to November and then being elected, then I don't want to be a politician. I want to be a public servant, and that's what I think he has been, a public servant. Like, right now, I serve my students, I serve the taxpayers of that community that I work in, and that's the same mindset I want to have in public office. Is I'm here to serve, not to be served, not to have a fancy title. And now I'm going to get on another tangent. In politics,
No, go ahead.
in politics, there is an inherent classist system set up. If you don't have the name, come from a family with the name, if you don't have the means to, like, for example, quit your job or have a spouse that has means to support you while you do what you got to do and serve, that's why we don't have middle class individuals going for public positions, which means by design we're not represented. The working
Hmm.
poor are not represented. I mean, when's the last time a poor cat ran for anything?
Truth.
And it was just not, I mean, I'm 27 now. It was just a few years ago. When did I buy my home? 23, 24, that I lived in public housing. Like,
Okay.
I lived in public housing my entire life. So that's something that's
Hmm.
very personal for me. The
Okay.
first event that I did in this campaign was at my old neighborhood because it's just, I have family still there.
Nice.
I
Nice.
have not forgotten them. I have not forgotten those residents. And, a lot of the people there, a lot of them have mental illnesses and
Okay.
they get vilified. the way we treat the poor in our country is just not right, and I want to be a voice for them. Yeah, they're not the donors. They're not the donor class.
Right.
But for the last how many years, the Democratic Party used to be such a fierce party for the working middle class, for the poor, and something happened. Unfortunately, I want to say it was
Hmm.
probably Ronald Reagan. That he took the country completely. He was very effective changing the conversation of the country, and the
Hmm.
left, or I will say the Democratic Party, followed him that way. And then one of my frustrations with the party as is at the federal level is that Republicans will go hard for anything they want. They don't
Hmm.
compromise. What's compromise to them? They just go hard, they sell it, and they don't care. Democrats, we compromise with ourselves. Oh, the right's not going to accept it. So let's not go so hard. Let's just do this private insurance thing, for example, instead of pushing for Medicare for all, instead of pushing for a public option. Let's compromise with ourselves before we even get to the compromising table. There's,
Right.
it's one thing to compromise. It's another thing to compromise with yourself before you even get to the table. I mean, what's that
Hmm.
about? Okay, so I went on this big thing, but as you can see,
No, that was great. That was great. You started talking, so I started tweeting what you were saying. Like that is great. Like that is what so many of us have been talking about. I'm a little older than you. I call myself an old lady millennial. I turn 35 next week. But no, 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 no. But like that is so awesome because I did a millennial roundtable a couple weeks back with Christy
mhm,
Matthews and Peter Jacobs and Bianca Pecco. And one of the things we were talking about was that, with younger people, they write us all off, right?
yeah,
We're self-centered or we're this or we're not really interested in doing
right,
anything. But you have all these voices standing up saying, no, I grew up X, Y, and Z, or I've seen this, or I've seen this in my community, and we need change. Like, I've grown up
exactly.
my whole life, and I've been told, like, growing up in the 80s, we were growing up under Reagan. I vaguely remember Reagan. I remember older Bush a little bit more, but like, seriously, like there was still this sense that we could still grow up, you could still do something, you could still make a difference if you worked really hard and you tried your best. Okay, I don't even know how we can tell kids today that because you can work really hard, you can get the good grades, and you can't afford to go to college. Like you can work really hard, you can get good grades, you can afford to go to college, but you might come out with a bunch of debt and a job that pays you not enough money, so you're in debt
Mhm.
and you really can't do anything. So what you say was a tangent. I mean, we're the home of the rants, and you just had a brilliant. When you were saying that we compromise with ourselves before we even get to the negotiating table, I think that's so true because when you sell yourself short, when you start really low, there's no room. You can
Right.
only go lower. You start a little high, and then you kind of, and that's one of the things I think I like about Bernie Sanders, and he said this too. That's why they called him the Amendment King. He would put stuff on the
Yep.
table, and everybody would roll their eyes at him, but he would still be able to work in what needed to be worked in meaningful legislative manner and ways. So that was definitely on point, everything you just said. So just thinking about your district, just tell me a little bit about your district, just a little bit more about your district. Well, tell us, because I know a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your district and kind of some of the issues that you're seeing that have not been addressed, you know, thus far,
Yeah.
or that you would like to see addressed better.
It's a predominantly working class district with
Mhm.
pockets of wealth. And one of the main issues now is that, like I was saying before, gentrification is happening very rapidly in many places of the district. And a lot of the current residents don't feel they have a voice, or they're getting priced out of their homes, they're getting priced out of their businesses. And that's not right. So they're not being heard. Another big issue in my district is transportation. This district is probably the worst place in the United States for parking and for the amount of car traffic in the
Okay.
country. So we need to invest heavily in public transportation, more bike paths. Which, to the credit to some of the local municipalities, they have been doing this, like with the bike paths.
Okay.
Hoboken, Jersey City have taken the lead on that a little
Yes.
bit.
Yes, they have. Yeah.
So to that credit, I got to give credit where credit's due. But we need more of that, and we need to transition to that green energy economy, or else I don't know. I don't know where these cars are going to go because already canvassing in my district, like it's not the
Mhm.
same as any other district you may hear about. You got to get there early, and then you drive around for half hour trying to find a parking spot. Or sometimes it's like, okay, my field director double parks the car, I get out, do what I got to do, and then we just keep it moving that way in certain areas. So it's very heavily congested. The way my district is drawn up, it's a heavy Latino population.
Okay.
And what's on their minds? It's jobs. It's being able to raise a family. It's the paycheck. It's those bread and butter issues. You know,
Right.
when my father first came here to the United States, it was relatively easy to get a good manufacturing job in Elizabeth, New
Hmm.
Jersey, with a pension, with a union, with good benefits for your family, that you could become middle class relatively quickly. And no, you didn't need to have a college degree.
Right.
And hell, you didn't even need to have a high school degree sometimes.
Right. Right. Right.
And I think what's interesting, you know, this might get me on a slightly off tangent, but it all goes together,
No,
I
no, no, no,
promise.
no. This is all. This is no, dude. We are like old friends. We are talking. We are catching up. Just go. It is fine. You're good. Go.
We're telling all our kids, go to college, go to college, go to college. And I think, yeah, that's good. Okay, go to college, but I'll get on that subject a little later. But we need to respect an ability of a worker to work. Workers need dignity. Anyone
Hmm.
that works in this country and puts in an honesty of work should be able to raise their family, should be able to live a decent middle class lifestyle, like in the past for many, many Americans. Like what we're talking about is not something crazy or bizarre. Like we're
Right.
talking about things that used to happen, used to be possible in our country. It used to be possible that with a high school diploma, you could get a decent, good job. And now most of those jobs, manufacturing jobs here in Elizabeth, all disappeared, replaced with retail jobs that pay minimum wage, minimum benefits, and what type of family or what type of lifestyle can you have? You shouldn't
Right.
have to be able to recite Shakespeare in order to make a middle class living. No disrespect to college or anything like that. But what I'm saying,
Hmm.
it needs to be both. For the student that wants to go to college, absolutely, they should be able to go, get their education, not come out in debt. But for the student that wants to work, there should be options for him or her as well. And that's not respected anymore in society. And I will be very honest, like my father, he doesn't have a degree. But that man could look
Okay.
at any car, any circuit or whatever, and fix it instantly. That's intelligence. That should be respected and dignified. And we need to respect those people with their talents. Like in education, we call it the multiple intelligences. Everyone has some sort of intelligence that they're good at. Okay, if you're telling me this, don't just give me lip service. Oh, yeah, we respect all intelligences and then measure our students by just how they do on math and reading. Like that's not respect for an individual's ability, which may be something different than just a traditional reading and writing or math
Hmm.
algorithm. It's just so much.
No, that is like that's brilliant analysis, right? Like what you just said is so crucial because you touch on so much. It so many areas of the country in general have seen those jobs dry up. They're very
Yeah.
hard to come by. My partner, he's a union iron worker, and we're here in Atlanta, and he was working in Indiana before, and he made way more doing the same exact job than what he makes now, and coming to Atlanta was like, why are we living in Atlanta? Because it's a pay cut for him, and he actually, he makes more money traveling to work up north elsewhere because it is so difficult with that type of that's a skilled construction position, but it's still tough for him. So we were talking. He was like, yeah, once upon a time, like you were just saying, you could come get a manufacturing job right out of high school, or even with like an eighth grade or some high school, or whatever, and you made a good wage. You made a good wage. You made a decent living. Your family was well taken care of, and everything was good. And now, everyone's touting all the jobs that have been created and added to the economy, but most of those jobs are low wage. They're
Yep.
retail or service oriented. We're not replacing it with the same jobs. The other thing I like what you just said about respecting individuals' ability beyond, just the traditional, for lack of a better, for what I'm just thinking, I'm envisioning just from that traditional college prep mode. Because there's been so much focus over the past 10 years or so on college prep only, and we got away from how there used to be vocational technical
Yes.
education in schools and stuff. Like I remember that we had VOTEC high schools when I was a kid. I remember that we had shop class when I was in junior high. So I remember we had those things, and now they don't exist really in school anymore. They're starting to come back to the specialty high schools a little bit, But even now, some of those are magnet, right? So the kid who really could benefit from going to school and getting that technical experience may not necessarily be getting it because it's not available at the local neighborhood school where that person's being, shuttled into. So what you were just saying about how we need to take that all into consideration and providing people the tools that's necessary, that is just so that is wonderful. So transportation, yeah, public transportation. I could with
No.
driving, congestion, and then but the jobs piece. But I think that's what's so crucial. You said that your district is heavily Latino. A lot of people seem to think that if you're a Latino voter or a Black voter, you only vote about this one issue that's specifically related to race or ethnicity or whatever, and that's it, and that's all you care about. But from what you're saying, like, we have working class, everyday people, and they're concerned about taking care of their family just like everybody else. And I think the more people we have who understand that this is not just I'm in this one box over here, but
Right.
there's a multitude of issues. The more we start working from that position, I think the better off we'll be. So let's talk about so your election is New Jersey primary day
Yep,
as
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Whew.
How has it been? Because I mean, you guys are still in school too, right? So
Yeah,
how has it been? So you're still teaching and you're running for office. How has that been?
it's been a roller coaster ride. Lots of coffee, lots of Red Bull. My nice little organic healthy diet for the last like 8 months has gone out the window. Me going to the gym has gone out the window. So it's been a sacrifice. In the beginning, my team and I, we got together. We made mistakes. We were learning. We were learning as we go. Now we're on the ground running. Like, we're connecting with voters. We've canvassed so many areas already. We're doing the phone banking. We're doing door
Okay.
knocking. Like, before I'm in this interview, I was out there as soon as after school ends, I go out. I had volunteers in other cities. Like, we're covering the district and we're getting the message out there one way or
Okay.
another. And I think it's so important, especially in an urban area, to provide residents a progressive choice. Because what people get twisted is that, oh, heavily Democratic areas, like, well, why do we need progressive outreach? No, if you look at where as a progressive base, where we falter, it's in our urban centers. And why is that? Okay, if I go to a voter and just, let's say, talk
Mhm.
about climate change right away, that may not connect with them because they want to know, I need a job to raise my kid. How do I do that? And they're used to saying, okay, I know that the Democratic Party is the working class party, so I just got to be Democratic. So they don't have
Right. Right.
they don't have access to alternate sources of media. We can't fault them for that. Like, a lot of my residents are not looking at the alternate sources of media for information on positions on people, Bernie Sanders versus Hillary, et cetera, et cetera. We
Right.
can't fault them for that. We need to meet people where they are, and we need to outreach in these communities. We need to have more people running for offices from the progressive wing of the party, bringing the message directly to them to bring that educational piece. Like, in New Jersey, we have this bracketing issue, which,
Okay.
let me explain what that means. So then, even though
Yeah.
it's a primary, the county chairman of whatever district you're in award the party line to someone. So, for
Oh.
example, Hillary in
Okay.
my district has line A. My opponent is under her in line A. And
Okay.
that's like the official Democratic line, to the point, and this is a small minority of voters. I was canvassing a man today, and he was very open, receptive to the message, and then he said, are you on the Democratic official line? I said, I'm a Democrat in line C. He's like, okay,
Interesting.
take your flyer back. That's what we're
Hmm.
combating in New Jersey. It's, if you're connected through the machine,
Mhm.
for example, that's what they call it. Like, if you have a job that's in public service, like, you may have loyalty to that line because it pays your bills. Like, no
Right.
disrespect, but we could change that. We could make it a real primary so that you just see two individuals are running for the Democratic nominee. Period. No one has the
Right.
official line. Here are two names. That's an issue we have in New Jersey that many people are not aware of, and that gives power to incumbents, or even incumbents that don't have good name recognition. They're just in a favorable
Right.
position on the line. and they are the official Democrats, whatever that means, and people just vote that way. So it's that educational piece, and it's finding all those components and addressing them, and that's how we'll build a real progressive movement in our urban centers specifically.
That's less. I want to like talk about like urban centers because you were just touching on it, like how I think what you're saying, because we've seen this, like, kind of stepping away from your race a little bit, just I'm going to go back and forth between yours and Bernie Sanders, because just what you're saying is exactly right, right? Like, how do we, because even as we talk about next steps, right, how do
Right.
we build that strength for progressivism, for a progressive movement, when we're looking at our urban centers, which are going to be a large potential voting base, right? And what you're saying is, yeah, like doing that time and investing in the outreach to actually speak to people. Climate change, exactly what you're saying. Campaign finance reform, these are really great, wonderful, noble ideas. But what does that mean for, the mother, the working mother with 3 kids trying to make ends meet? Like, what does that mean on the local? Like, I think what you're saying is absolutely right. Like, you got to break it down and talk to people where they
Exactly.
are. You can bring them along with you so they kind of come further along in the issues, but you got to meet them where they are and help them come along.
Exactly.
Um, so you were just talking about the line, and I didn't realize that's what it was called because I did talk to Peter Jacobs before, and he kind of lucked up for being on the
Yes.
official line. He lucked up. Peter
He's my
lucked up.
boy, by the way.
Huh?
That's my boy, Peter Jacob, and I were very
Oh,
close.
awesome! Yay, Jersey love, awesome!
Yeah.
Like you guys, like I'm so impressed. Like I'm just like blown away, seriously. And so I was so thankful that you had, because I know you guys are campaigning and stuff. So I'm like, this is awesome that you're taking the time to speak to me tonight. But he looked up into his position, but what you were just saying about how there's an official line, and that it just seems like voters almost seem to think that that means more about the value of what they're getting for their vote than if they take a chance on someone who's not on that official line and roster. And we do need to break through that. So how have you all like how has it been, getting out there and working with voters? I know you're saying it's only a small section, but how has it been trying to work around that? In your
Emphasizing
process.
that, like in my district, emphasizing that I am a Democrat. Like that's the
Hmm.
key word. Like even the title I picked, my slogan on the ballot, it's Democrats for Progress. So the progress is for my progressives, so that they know, yes, I'm one of you. But for that voter that votes in every election, but they don't have the alternative source of media. They just know Democrats are the better party in their head, right?
Yes.
They need to see that title. When I'm even canvassing for Bernie, I
Hmm.
say he's a Democrat, and that eases the anxiety towards him to the voter I'm talking to a little bit, especially the
Hmm.
Latino voter that like Cuba. I'm Cuban. I'm half Cuban. The,
Okay. Okay.
the democratic socialism thing, do not describe it as democratic socialism for an older Cuban. Just don't go there. Just don't go there. If you're talking about college affordability, if you're talking about jobs, if you're talking about higher minimum wage, they're all for it. They're all
Yes.
for it.
Yes.
It's just that, because of the past history as Fidel Castro and all that, just don't
Right.
go
Right.
there. It's
Right.
not even
Right.
necessary. And it's understanding that and understanding your populace of who you're trying to appeal to. Because
Hmm.
like, for example, it's very common that if you're not on the line, you get tagged as a Republican in the race when you're not a Republican.
Oh.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For example, there's a couple local races in other cities
Hmm.
at the local level in my county, and the people on the line describe themselves as the real Democrats against other people who are not on the line, and they infer that they're Republicans. That's how you
Hmm.
scare people. Number one question I get when I'm door knocking on people's door: Are you a Republican? No, I'm a Democrat on line C. Remember line C. So yeah,
Oh
it's just
wow.
knowing those little things, and that's how you work your messaging to actually break through. But you got to know that. You
Okay.
can't just say, you got to meet people. Like I said, you got to meet people where they are.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Definitely. Definitely. So, what are some of the big takeaways? Like, if you just have your short, quick, and dirty stump. What do people need to know about you as they're going into the New Jersey primary in the next 2 weeks? Like, what is
I,
it you want to drive home?
I want to be a fierce advocate against the income inequality that we're seeing. I want to help be a voice for workers, no matter what type of work they're in. I want to know that when my students are applying to go to college, that I can say to them in good faith, yes, it is worth it to go in college and you'll come out with a degree without being burdened for the rest of your life with student debt. Because it honestly breaks my heart when I'm helping students fill out those FAFSAs and I see
Mm-hmm.
that gap already before, and that's the federal gap, which is always a little smaller than what it really is going to be. How many
Yep.
loans are going to have to take out in addition to the federal loans that they already have, that's part of the package. And what we're doing to the, I'm a millennial, but to the younger generation, it's getting even worse.
Yeah.
It's getting even worse. So I want to be able to say to that generation, those students, yes, if you go to college or to a vocational school, it will be worth it. I want to make sure we have an economy that's balanced, that's not tilted just for certain jobs or certain finance or
Mm-hmm.
tech, that it respects all workers and that all workers can live in dignity. I want to be able to give my kids a world that will still be here, that we transition to a green energy economy that can provide the jobs. That's the hook for the urban
Right.
centers. We can have a green energy revolution that provides jobs in our urban centers for our current residents while still helping our planet defeat global warming and slow down global warming. Those things are not mutually exclusive. We could combine these goals together. I want to be able to say to people going into education, you will have a voice. You won't be blamed for the ills of poverty. We will be your partners in helping make strong communities so that we can have strong schools. Because this nonsense of the last 10, 15 years that, oh, it's all about raising the standards, raising the rigor. Listen, my kid can't study if their best friend just got shot the other day. All right?
Woo! Yo, like that is. I love you. That is just so real, though. But no, seriously. Like more standards, more tests, more this, more that. That is not changing. Like you're saying, it's not changing what's happening out on the streets.
No.
That's not changing. Whether or not kids are even have the help at home they need, and not because their parents don't care, but because parents are working really hard to make ends meet because jobs just don't pay what they used to. I mean, there's so many different reasons. Whether schools have even the resources, does the kid even have a book to bring home,
Right.
to read? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That was just so real. I had to like, woo.
I mean,
um,
I have students that I teach a very great class, Intro to Education. It's for people that may want to be future educators in the future. I have students in that class that are working 2 to 3 jobs already that come to school sleep deprived. And yes, I'm in their face. I'm like, all right, you got to finish your project. You got to finish your project. So yeah,
hmm
the class, if you look at it at a glance, it's a different style of class, that those students from this urban area, they went to a conference with students from
hmm
affluent districts. They were the most professionally dressed. They were the most prepared. So yeah, you could come into my class and think they're just macking or whatever, but they're getting their
hmm
work done. Yes, it takes me motivating them a little extra, but they're great kids with
hmm
such great potential. They have to finish one more paper. I know they got prom this week. I just got to get on one more paper, guys. But they have kids with such great potential that if we just find that talent and that spark and honor it and respect it and know their stories. Like I just got this class in January and I've heard so many of their personal stories that has
hmm
broken my heart, uplifted me, and listen to them. Then we could start making progress. We gotta treat the whole child, the holistic, their social, their emotional, what's going meet them again where they are. And yes, at the same time, helping them with their skills. But don't come down on a middle class profession, the teachers, and saying, oh, well, Johnny or whatever didn't get a 5 on the standardized test score. You must be ineffective. Help the teachers. Help the teachers understand what it's like to grow up in an urban environment where there's a lack of resources, where you have to work 2 to 3 jobs. That's the type of training our teachers need, not how to write this damn essay another way, change it
Right,
from
right,
persuasive to
right.
argumentative or whatever the terms always change. You gotta treat the whole child. So I want to be an advocate for all middle class professions like teachers. I want to be an advocate allowing workers to unionize so that they have a voice in their workplace. Honestly, we're at such a pinnacle point in our history. Are we going to invest in our people, in all our brothers and sisters, and look at each other as brothers and sisters and make sure we can uplift each other? Or are we going to continue the path that we've been on? The path where wealth is increasingly concentrated at the top. Our middle class is now 43% and shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see much more
Wow.
hate. You're going to see much more racism, for example, because people always find something to blame. You're going to see a lot more conflict within communities, because when you have poverty, you have crime, you have conflict. Poverty is worse than crack. The mental stress of poverty is just unbearable, and people need to understand that. We have a chance right now with the movement that is going on. There is a progressive movement alive to change the direction of this country. And I want to shout out to all the progressives. Please do not get disengaged no matter what happens on June 7th. Stay involved, stay tuned to, like, don't just leave.
Yep.
Don't just leave and say, okay, I'm done. I'm done with voting. I'm done with this. No, that's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to disengage. Don't disengage. Stay involved. Find local candidates or progressives and uplift them. Because we could work together. We can make a change in this country. It just takes us believing in each other and actually doing the hard work and sticking to it.
That's awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so much for joining me. I'm about out of time for the evening, but I thank you so much because woo, this has been great. And regardless, I definitely want to keep in touch and continue to talk with you guys, with you, your staff, everybody out there, because this is work that we need to keep doing past this election cycle. So I wish you the best, sending up for you, because we need you in there. So thank you so much for joining this evening.
No, thank you for giving me this platform to get my voice out there. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
All
Thanks.
right. Take care.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
So thank you all so much for coming in. Again, this is The Way with Anoa. If you are new and if you're hanging around waiting for Ben, if you haven't done so, Ben's channel is 89 likes, subscriptions away from 10,000. 10,000. So please, if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe to Ben's channel. There's so much great talent going on. Nick did another special interview last night. Of course, you have the BPD show, the Benjamin Dixon show, Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m. And then you have Project Sanity with Niz and Richard Thursdays. There's tons of going on. We got podcasts about to pop off like progressivearmy.com. Huge, come be a part of the movement. But definitely please hit subscribe and help my big brother get to 10,000. You guys, just a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna tune out and then let us get to the main event for the evening. Because Ben will come on at 9, so don't forget to switch over to Ben at 9. Just want to let you guys know. So, brand new Congress. We talked about brand new Congress before. It's this idea that we build up and help run candidates on the 2018. Candidates running right now in 2016. Check out Grassroots Select. Bernie just sent out. There's a longer list of progressives who are being supported right now. Eloy is actually one of them. There's a second list. Big push for support for progressives. Go check those out. But brand new Congress is launching its 100 city tour. The map just went up today. Or click on the map, find an event in a city near you, sign up to find out more about becoming part of one of the local teams organizing and helping to vet potential candidates as we look toward the 2018. Why are we focused on 2018? Because we got to start. We're doing it big. We got to start early. 2016 is still very much in play, so there are tons of progressive candidates. Bernie Kratz. You can go on sandersdemocrat.org to really check out and find out who's involved right now in the 2016 cycle. There's so many of them have come through here, and there's a great write-up on progressivearmy.com as well. So the People's Summit, again, People's Summit is June 17th to the 19th. That will be in Chicago at McCormick Place. It is a 2.5-day summit. Speakers include Naomi Klein, Naomi Klein and Dante Berry of Million Hoodies and Cornell West. And it's just a great list of just plenary sessions and real opportunities. So similar as the left forum just took place this weekend. How do we move this progressive energy forward into a cohesive and sustainable, movement for real change, not just, national level, but looking at that state and local grassroots. How do we do this? What are the next steps? So that's pretty much our show for the evening. I thank you so much for coming in and joining me and being here. Oh, there's also, I almost forgot, there's the People's Revolution, and I do not remember the dates for the People's Revolution, but the People's Revolution is right before the convention in July. And speaking of the convention, there's also 4 rallies, marches planned during that time in Philadelphia. So there's a lot going on throughout the summer. If you your duty and you voted where you live, make sure you are staying involved, engaged, and you vote for your state local elections. If you've already voted in your state local election and everything else, then help phone bank, help canvass. If you can get to go, if you have the time, go help canvass in Jersey, go help canvass in New Mexico if you're able, if you're in those geographical areas, go help out in DC, hop on the dialer, you know what I'm saying? Rico, that Bernie Sanders, out of the 3 candidates left in the running, Bernie Sanders is the only one that is putting forth a meaningful plan for change, for a whole, but really looking at the issues that have led to the Puerto Rican debt crisis and offering opportunities for the people of Puerto Rico to help themselves out and make meaningful decisions, and not some nonsense proposals that include things like reducing the minimum wage to $4.25 an hour for those under the age of 25. Right now in this election, there's a lot of stake going forward in the next several years. We need people in these seats in 2016 and 2018, because when redistricting comes up in 2020, it's a whole nother story. Oh, almost forgot a news story. They handed down 3 decisions having some racial components to them, but the one I want to talk about is the big one that made the news. Had to deal with a new trial being granted for a man right here in Georgia who's on death row. And what it ultimately came down to was improper use of race in dismissing jurors from his trial. And the Supreme Court, it was so blatant, they overruled it. The Supreme Court didn't go as far as many advocates would have liked them to do in addressing more subtle ways that race is used to exclude jurors. In this case, it was a 7-1 decision, and Clarence Thomas was the only one that dissented. He's keeping up for Scalia in his absence. But I thank you all for joining me. I thank you all for being here. May do some impromptu stuff later on in the week or on the weekend, but it's a holiday, so you never know. So, but definitely come back. Check me out next Tuesday. Hit me up on Twitter, Miss Nono ESQ. And my closing thought, because I told her I was going to do this, and I am, from my beloved, my friend, my sister, and my favorite researcher, Dr. Q Hyde. She said something very interesting, and it applies most definitely to as we're looking at this process of engaging progressive politics and movement building. I think we've grown accustomed to separating certain things from each other, like rhetoric versus action, outreach. But I think this is another example of our needing to practice our ideals. We can't just talk about them and remove them from the context of our praxis. I think this is an example of where we need to be truly intersectional to move forward. That just moved me so much earlier today. I've been doing this where I've been finding powerful quotes. I really think that concept of not just having, the great rhetoric, we got great rhetoric and academic intellect on one hand, and we have action on the other. We have to find a happy marriage and have meaningful outreach. Just like Eloy was just saying, we gotta heavily invest in outreach when we're talking about our urban centers. And then as we talk about our poor rural economies as well, we have to do that outreach in those places who most benefit from everything we're talking about. So thank you all so much.